And welcome, everyone, to God's Views on Political News. Good to have you back again this week. I want to remind everybody who's coming in, and I may do this a couple times, please feel free to comment during the show, ask any questions that you want during the show. We always love that. And we got a lot to talk about today. So, Bill, how are you doing? And we see you're on the road.
I'm on the road again, yes.
Today,
I've pretty good bit. I'm in a truck stop parking lot, and but this time I parked behind another car so that I wouldn't have anybody coming up and looking in the windshield to see what I was up to. So hopefully we won't have any interruptions like last time.
I know. We do get a kind of a kick out of when you're on the road and you're talking from the car and the things that happen. It kind of makes things a little exciting. So
Well, as I'm looking around, not a lot to get excited about, but anyway.
So let's start out. We might as well just jump right in with the March for Our Lives. Now, I'm sure you were glued to the set as I was that day.
What day was that?
I didn't even watch a second of it. I have to admit, I really didn't watch it.
I didn't either. I just after the aftermath and all the different reports and different things going on about it, and it's probably a good thing I didn't watch it. We'll leave it at that.
So your blood pressure doesn't have to get high.
I'm not on any meds right now. I would like to kind of keep it that way. So blood pressure medicine, not good. Not good.
What do you think about, the stuff that's going on? Because, the way I look at it, and I know people are getting tired of it. I'm getting tired of seeing this David Hogg guy on TV every 5 minutes. It's obvious that he is being told what to say. He kind of looks at himself, it seems, as this big activist, somebody who's going to really be popular and do a lot of things and for the movement, whatever movement he thinks it is today. But I see this guy, he's 17, so everybody's kind of giving me a little bit of hands off because of the fact that he is 17. He's supposed to turn 18 sometime this year. What do you see for this particular guy and the damage or the benefit, whichever way you believe that he's doing for his cause?
Well, he's 17. I mean, if somebody had put me on television when I was 17, Lord only knows what I would have said. It would have probably been stupid. So, on one hand, it's like, he's a kid. He doesn't know anything. I mean, he really doesn't. I mean, I'm not saying he's unintelligent or anything like that. He just doesn't have any life experience. And I would say the same for about my teenage son, in the sense that he doesn't have life experience. And so it's the media that I look to first and foremost as being the issue here. And, pretty strategic, I guess you'd say, of them to put a 17-year-old, because people are going to kind of take not going to be as rough with him, I guess you'd say. But what comes to my mind when I see him or hear him or these girls that they put on, with him from the same school, I'm like, what kind of house did these kids grow up in? I mean, this guy has got a foul mouth, and he doesn't think anything about just letting it fly in a public interview. And I'm thinking, your parents are good with this? So that's what comes to mind. And then in my mind connects to the whole, the issue at large. Why we have such problems is because there's a generation that are coming up. They have no respect, no fear of anything or anyone. And to me, that it ultimately connects to how they interact and how they view the creator. So as far as his effectiveness, I don't think personally it's going to have any long-term effects as far as the gun crowd. I mean, the gun restriction crowd. I think he's relishing his 15 minutes of fame, and if everything I've read is accurate, then if he's trying to get everybody to look down on the NRA, it's having the reverse effect, because I think memberships to the NRA are through the roof from what I've read, what I understand. So it seems to me that he's being more of a detriment to his overall cause, which then makes me wonder where he's concerned. If it's really about the cause, or if it's just about being a celebrity for the moment and getting to rub elbows with Valerie Jarrett and this one and that one.
Yeah, a couple things that you said there I want to comment on. I think that when you say that he doesn't have a fear of anything, and he believes that he can say anything and be disrespectful, and it's F this, F that, every other word in interviews, and I think a lot of that, Bill, is because people his age, the parents have taught them to be able to say anything, do whatever they want to do, and they protect them at the same time. So they don't ever have any real world experience because they're shielded from it. So they don't have any fear of anything because there's never been a situation that they had to handle on their own. Their parents have protected them. And so, and I think that in and of itself is a bad thing. Never being allowed to fail, let's say. They've never been allowed to fail. They've always been given a trophy just for showing up. They've always been told that, they're on a pedestal just for being here. And so that's not how kids a long time ago used to be trained, if you will, to be taught. They're taught to respect others. It's not to look at it as it's all about you type thing. Yeah. And I think it's kind of, I don't know, in some ways what happened was they were out there with their First Amendment rights telling you that they want your Second Amendment rights, when weeks ago we were told, oh, no, it's not about Second Amendment. We're not trying to take your guns. This is all about safety. And anytime the left wants to do anything, they make it about public safety or safety in some manner. And that way you're supposed to go along with it, because if you do otherwise, then it suddenly you don't care about children, you don't care about safety or anything else. But it's almost like they're getting something the opposite of what they thought, because now in school, supposedly their school is going to make everyone wear badges, including the students. All the doors are going to be locked at all times. I think they have to wear, maybe either not bring backpacks or backpacks that are see-through, something like that. So it's kind of like they're learning, maybe for the first time, that when you want to take the rights away, especially the Second Amendment rights from somebody else, they're taking your freedoms away from you in return, because you're having to do all these things that you didn't think that you would have to do. And this would simply be cured, if you will, by having armed guards in front of the school and metal detectors, and then they wouldn't have to give up their freedoms.
Well, they don't want to give up their backpacks, right? He's crying the blues because the school district wants them to wear clear backpacks, because that just doesn't look cool. I mean, exactly. He's talking about all these other reasons, but the bottom line is it doesn't look cool. That's so, it's a 17-year-old kid, like I said, but the thing is that what is becoming clear through all of this is it isn't just a safety issue. That's what they're using, as you said. Right. It's there's an agenda behind this. I think I read this morning or last night sometime that what was it? The former Supreme Court Justice Stevens, was it?
Yes.
Stevens? Okay. Uh-huh. Saying that we need to repeal and replace the Second Amendment. Yep. I did see images from this March for Life or whatever it was, that there were placards that people carried around, basically asking, is freedom worth or more valuable than safety, or something like that. In other words, making the argument that our safety is more important than our freedoms, which is going to fall into the hands of those who would gladly take your freedoms away from you. So I think it's pretty clear what the agenda is. We've known it. We've suspected it. We've talked about it. Now it's kind of out in the open, and they're getting these teenagers to kind of push the issue. So, yeah.
And you said March for Life. No, that would include unborn children who are being killed. Right. Bill. So that's not really anything. That's a safety issue we don't even care about, on the left. So,
well, I think I said this at some point when we've talked about this, that Look, I'm not going to take lectures from people who are willing to slaughter unborn children in their mother's womb. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be lectured by you. When you start taking up the cause for unborn children, then I may listen to your arguments where other things are concerned, but not until.
And it was named March for Our Lives. It's kind of one of those, sort of specific, egocentric type things where it's just about the kids. And that also is an agenda that they're pushing on the left, make it all about the kids. Once again, you're not going to be as likely to talk against it, because then that means you don't like children if you're against protecting the children. But we've seen this agenda on the left a long time. Many people in the media now, not in the mainstream media, but people in social media, are kind of comparing it to what Hitler did with Hitler's youth. I don't know that I would go that far, but I do know that the youth have been used for a long time to push the agenda of the left. However, it hasn't been this overt, I don't think, until now. And they're really making that push, because it's like, we've tried everything else to go after the Second Amendment. So what else haven't we used? Oh, yeah, that's right. Let's use kids now, and let's just make this happen.
Well, to some degree, it might be, effective with some people. Any people who are on the fringe, who not really sold out to the Bill of Rights and things like that. And it's crazy that there are a lot of people in this country that are like that. They live in what I call the overlap region. They're not hot, they're not cold, they're lukewarm. They can go either way. And so it can be, it can have effect with those kinds of people. But I think more than anything, it's going to polarize. It's going to, well, let me restate that. It's going to make clear who is who. It's going to cause people to make hard choices and say, this is the camp I'm in, whether it's Second Amendment, First Amendment, whether it's just liberties, in general, because what they're making this to be is our safety is more important than your liberty. Well, that's going to create a fight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's going to cause some people to bow up.
And I want to remind people that our inner chat room, please feel free to comment or ask questions while we're talking. Don't worry about thinking that you're interrupting us. You're not. So, And I wanted to say, too, that, Andrew Wilkow, who was a popular radio host, he had a really good message, I think, for the people on the right. And I've talked about this a little bit before, not on this program, but in others, where I've said that he said, don't try to compete with those on the left who are pushing this agenda, who are out marching, who have all of this money thrown at them from celebrities. Because we on the right, we don't have that, which I'm thankful for, that we don't have celebrities on our side, because then it wouldn't be a really good side that we're on. But he said, instead of trying to do that and have a bigger march or get out the message a lot more, he said, go out every time that they have a march like this and buy a weapon. Buy ammunition, make the sales of guns go through the roof. And then you're going to send a really important message to them that, no, you're not taking our Second Amendment rights. Because, let's face it, they've gone out. They said the other day there were 800,000 people in this march, and it's coming out, no, there were only about 200,000 people. They don't mind lying and making it even more and better than a march than what it really was. And I think he's right, Andrew Wilkow. The best thing for us is just to get out and show with our dollars, which is usually what conservatives do, that we are not going to allow you to take away our Second Amendment rights.
Well, Hollywood is all about pretending to be something you're not. It's all about show. It's all about the outward appearance. I remember the first time I went to Hollywood, I thought, this is it. Good Lord, this is seedy and nasty and dirty, and but they make it out to be some this spectacular, glamorous, all this. All right, my point is, that's what secular people do. That's what those who are wired that way. That's the way they think. It's all about American Idol. It's about this, that, and the other. And so they bring in all these celebrities because that is going to impress people, I guess you'd say. Whereas people who have convictions, standards, values, and I'm going to really emphasize biblical standards, those kinds of values. It's not about how it looks, it's about what it does. And so what I'm saying is, I agree with you. If you're, if you want to make a point, don't worry about who, what famous person is out there voicing these things for us. It's about what we do as a people. And beyond buying weapons, beyond buying ammunition, it needs to be about how we live our lives day to day and not be influenced to alter our lifestyles if it's in concert with a biblical standard. Am I making sense here? Because that's going to carry the day. It's not going to be the glitz. It's not going to be the shouting. It's not even going to be the protesting. It's going to be how we live our daily lives from day to day, how we going and influence our children on a daily basis. And in my particular case, that's shielding them from Hollywood's influence and from television's influence and from, a lot of these secularized ideas. I don't let my kids get exposed to a whole lot of that.
Yeah. Well, Dawn said, look at the message that was sent out when the NRA membership increased. And I think it increased again this time. And it is a great message, just showing them once again that whatever you're saying, whatever you're doing, we're against it. And this is how we're proving it to the world, to the United States in general, that we're against it. And what you're doing, what you're saying doesn't matter. And I also wanted to talk about a little bit the campus reform. This is a group of conservative students that go out and go around to different campuses and ask questions of the people who are on campus. And God love them. I don't know how you can do it because the answers they get sometimes would make your head spin. But they went out to the marchers during this March for Our Lives and asked them about the Second Amendment and what their thoughts were. And here's some of the responses, Bill, that they got when they asked about the Second Amendment. Some people said it was outdated. Others said the wording needs to be revisited. They said that it was written for a different time, doesn't apply to today's society. And another one said the Constitution itself is outdated. Kind of hard to hear that.
Well, not surprised though.
No.
But what I find interesting about that, Susan, and that's what a lot of secular people say about the Bible.
Yes.
That's what they say about God's rules. That's what they say about the standards that God imposed. Outdated, needs to be revisited, needs to be reworded. It's just all needs to be done away with. They're saying the same thing about the scripture. And so I don't find the two disconnected, by the way.
Right.
Because if you trace the history of how the Constitution came to be, there is a link that carries it all the way back to the Mayflower Compact, and the Mayflower Compact was in large part based on principles taken from the scriptures. So I'm not surprised at all to hear those kinds of comments. Kind of a sidebar to that, I watched, I don't know if it was the same group or not, but there was somebody that went up to a lot of these protesters and asked them, what is an assault rifle? What is an assault weapon? They're trying to get a definition from it, and all they can do is scream expletives, and they can't really give an answer. That's all they know how to do is scream and curse. Right. So that's there's no substance there. That's the point. It's all glitz. It's all show. It's all veiled threats, to be honest with you. Which I also find to be the irony in all of this, is that those who are protesting supposedly against violence and all this are themselves violent people. Yeah. There were many of them that would not hesitate to hurt you or me in order to advance their cause.
Well, and that's exactly right. And that's what's so scary sometimes about those, the extremists, especially on the left, the communists, the socialists, they feel justified in, even if it means, breaking the law to push their agenda and to get their agenda, they're ready, willing, and able to do it. They feel that it is justified in doing so. And that is really scary because, the common sense, the rationality, everything goes out the window when you're those type of individuals that feel your cause should be won at any cost.
Well, that's really what's going on here. I mean, again, I've used this analogy many, many times, I know, but it's because it's still relevant that I keep going back to it. and that is this parable of the wheat and the tares. There comes a point, well, for a long time, the wheat and the tares grow up together. And unless you really know what you're doing, you can't distinguish between the two. They're plants, they're growing up. But when they begin to put forth their fruit, then you know the difference. And so that's what I see happening now. We're seeing the fruit of liberalism, socialism, communism, Marxism, which is basically being godless.
Yeah.
It's a godless-ism. I don't know if that's a word or not, but it's really beginning to produce its fruit. You really just see what they're all about. I saw a placard in, after this march was over, and somebody was carrying it, and it said, "Okay, we will take it from your cold, dead hands." All right. So what is the implication in that? If I have to, I'll get rid of you. Yep. So the fruit is beginning to show. And that is why, as God's people, our fruit needs to show too. It needs to go beyond the politics of it all. And it needs to be about who are we in relationship with.
And I think you make a good point. And one of the things I want to bring up, in talking about sort of this next subject, we were talking about the omnibus bill. Everybody's been talking about the omnibus bill. And, I think that, a lot of people were very disappointed in the fact that it seems like the Democrats got everything they wanted. The Republicans who are in control of the White House, the majority of the House and the Senate, really got nothing, except if you want to look at it, they got the military money they wanted for the military and a little bit of money to start the wall. I think, in looking at that, I don't know, a lot of people, like I said, they were really disappointed. I was really upset. I was angry for like the whole day because I wanted him to veto that bill and he didn't. And I'll let you comment before I go further about your thoughts on that.
Well, he should have vetoed it. In my view, without getting into a lot of the other spending, the fact that it still has spending for Planned Parenthood is all I need to know. And I realize that there are not enough people in Congress, and this is including the Republican side, who would do something about that, who have the gumption to cut Planned Parenthood off. But for me, I don't have to go any further. I understand that the argument was being made that, well, in order to get the money for the military, I had to, do this, that, and the other. I don't go with that logic. That's not me. It's like, I'm sorry. I can't do that, but that's me. That's why I'm not in politics. So disappointing is an understatement, but it is what it is. And this is where I have to remind myself, I got to keep my eyes on the Messiah, because if I kept my eyes on everybody else, I'd be in a rubber room talking to myself.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I look at that, and yes, I wanted him to veto it, but as we've talked about before, but 2/3 majority of the House, 2/3 majority of the Senate could have overridden his veto, and some people would say, well, that's okay. At least it wasn't the president doing that. And also, I look at it. We don't know everything that's going on within the government. I don't know if our military was so depleted under former President Obama that we are like sitting ducks and we just don't know how bad it is. It seems like those in the military, like Mattis and maybe the president, know that there's something that we don't know about how bad off the military is.
Well, okay, that's a good point. You're right. We don't have all the facts and figures in front of us. We're not privy to that kind of information.
Right.
So yeah, I see that, and I see that. I think it was Reagan that said, if I have to compromise to get 80% of what I want, that's what I'm going to do. And
right.
And that's what politicians have to do. But there are certain things to me that are just, I'm not going to bend on this. I'm not going to compromise on this. And the whole abortion funding Planned Parenthood to me is a deal breaker. Now that's me. Again, I'm not sitting in the chair. I'm not behind the desk. I don't have all the information, but that's me. And so I'm very disappointed that it was signed. But but I'm not going to lay all the blame at Trump's doorstep. I mean, there are a lot of Republicans that got behind this bill. I mean, I expected out of the Democrats, but there were lots of Republicans who, last I heard, are the majority party right now. At least, we'll see how things work out in November. But, they could have at least taken a stand as far as I'm concerned. So it's disappointing all the way around.
Yeah, and there's some things that I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, but they were saying that in regards to the abortion funding, that none of that money was supposed to be used for abortions. Now, whether that's true, I don't know. Whether they would keep to it, I doubt it, or they would find another way to free up other money and use that money for abortions instead of using the federal funds that they got.
Yeah, and Social Security is still going to be around when I need it.
Yeah, I know. There's no perfect thing coming out of this at all. There's really, you could tell that the president was upset. He was angry, saying, "I'll never sign another bill like this. I hope he gets a chance to undo the damage." This is a 6-month bill. The thing that has come out of it for me, and I know people are going to disagree with me, but right before I say it, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Okay, I'm getting ready.
You're getting ready because you're going to have to, because it's probably going to not be what you agree with at all. After all this happened, I really gave this a lot of thought, and I've been giving it a lot of thought for a long time. For me, this, what's going on now in the world is not about politics. Politics is about 2% of really what really is going on, what is happening in our United States right now. And that is, these people sitting out there, the Democrats, who are really communist, progressive, socialists, globalists at the same time, they really want to destroy America. They want to destroy us. Okay, from the inside out.
I agree with that.
And I believe that's one of the reasons that we have sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. These people want an open, borderless society. And because President Trump is trying to stop a lot of people from coming in that would harm us, and the Democrats have tried to use the court system to stop President Trump in doing what he's doing. They've figured out another way to accomplish the same thing, is to allow people to come in across the border, making it an open, borderless society that way, and protecting those people once they are here. So we start to change the culture of the United States from the inside out. We're breaking laws. There's lawlessness when it comes to the illegal immigrants. We're protecting the criminal illegals, on and on and on. The way I see it is that, a lot of people said, okay, that's it. I'm mad at President Trump. I'm off the Trump train. I'm not going to vote for him. I'm not going to vote for a Republican again. I'm done. I'm just not going to vote. My thoughts is this. Now, here's the part that you may not agree with. Right now, President Trump, other than God, because that's a given, okay? But other than God, right now, President Trump and the Republican Party, as weak and sick as it is what is keeping us from falling into that one world government that the Democrats want, and having us slide into a place where the Republic is no longer going to exist. For me, I have to vote for a Republican whether I want it or not. I have to try to get out the rhinos that are in there that are just like Democrats. They're the progressives, the globalists, the elitists that are killing us in the Republican Party. But if I don't vote, if I say I'm not going to vote for a Republican again, or I don't vote for this president again, and the Democrat Party gets back in control, in my opinion, we're done. The Republic is over.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. I mean, I don't know. Okay. On the practical side of things, I agree with what you're saying, the principle of it, that
right.
As bad as the Republican Party is behaving today,
right.
And as progressive as they are,
yes,
I'm still wanting to think that they don't have designs on actually destroying the country. So I agree with you. There are some liberals in this country that want to, like Barack Obama, like Valerie
yes.
Jarrett, like others, they want to fundamentally transform this nation. That's what Barack Obama said he wanted to do, and did a pretty darn good job at it. So I don't disagree with that. That doesn't mean, however, that the other element that is standing in the way, and that is the people of the United States, doesn't mean that they should just say, well, this is our only option, and we're just going to have to deal with it. I think that we need to make our voices heard,
right,
on the practical side of things, and that is Mr. Ryan, Mr. McConnell, and all the rest of them. You aren't listening to us.
Yeah.
And you need to listen to what we're saying. So there is there's that other part of it that, is standing in the way of what you just described.
Yeah.
But now our responsibility, and now I'm just talking just in temporal, practical terms. I'm not even talking about the spiritual side of things right now.
Right.
Just in practical terms. Yeah, I feel like I need to vote. I feel like I need to vote for people who I think will do the best job. I'm not of the opinion that I'm going to continue to choose between the lesser of two evils, because that's how we got to this mess. So I think well in advance of going into the polling booth, before I am forced to try to choose between the lesser of two evils, now's the time to make our voices heard. Now's the time to raise a ruckus and let the people know we're not happy. That's what I think. So.
And Chessie, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bill.
No. Go ahead.
Chessie said, I agree, Susan. I will continue to vote Republican straight ticket because the other side is evil. Call your representatives and senators and make your voice be heard. Chessie said, Dawn said, I understand, and I may be wrong, but I understand that because it is an omnibus bill, that it gives the president more leeway on how they can spend the money. And Dawn, I just have to say that as, maybe not true. There've been a lot of people like Rush Limbaugh, Dan Bongino, other people. I've researched it, and I'm not finding that to be true. But we'll have to wait and see whether or not he can use, I know what you're talking, whether the president can use that money to use the Army Corps of Engineers as part of the military budget he has to build that wall. Right now, it's just kind of unclear. And Bill, I was going to say, I agree with you on, if we were living in typical times, if this were 15 years ago, I would say go in, yes, you vote for the best person, you vote for the one that is more with your ideology. For me, this has changed. What I'm seeing, I know is here, and what I fear is coming, for me, has changed everything for me. This is no longer about politics. This is good versus evil. This is spiritual battle all the way. And the part of me, I guess, quote unquote, fighting in that battle is putting in people as bad as they are. If I can't get the rhinos out, in my opinion, they are slowing down, is all they're doing. They are slowing down the one world order people coming in and taking over. And
well,
that's what I see.
Okay, but if they're only slowing it down,
yes,
then that is really by default saying it's eventually going to happen.
But right? It will. It will eventually happen.
So here's my point: is this is a spiritual issue,
right?
And it's not going to be remedied through political or any kind of temporal means. I realize that there are only certain tools we have at our disposal in the temporal world to do something about it, to make our voices heard in that respect. But I've been saying this from day one when Trump was elected. I'm glad that Clinton wasn't elected. Hallelujah that Hillary wasn't elected. And with all my reservations about Trump, my issues with Trump, and we won't go rehash all those things. I'm glad Hillary wasn't elected, but I was never under the idea that this guy was going to be the perfect guy, and he was. Exactly. I believe he's God's man, but what we have to understand is that what we envision God's purposes as being, and what God's purposes actually are, sometimes can differ. So here's what I'm getting at. We have a spiritual problem.
Yes.
The only remedy is through spiritual means. And so from day one, I've been saying, if we've been given a reprieve,
Right.
here's the deal. There's just a window of opportunity. And we had better be living our lives in a spiritual way that is pleasing to God. Right. Or this is every good thing we think Trump may has done so far. And there are some things.
Yes.
You know, Jerusalem, the capital, moving the embassy, if that in fact does materialize. Some other things that he's trying to do, I applaud. They're great. But they can be just as quickly undone by the next administration. And so, and absolutely will be. And so, again, the issue here needs to be spiritual. We need to be putting so much emphasis on that. Yes, vote. Yes, get involved. Yes, let your voices be heard. But what we typically do is we sit around, and I'm talking in general now, and I'm not talking about people like you and others, but we sit around, we complain, we fuss, you know, and all these kinds of things. And we get to the polling booth, and once again, we're trying to choose between the lesser of two evils. So even those who are as bad as, you know, some of these rhinos are, we continue to put them in office with the idea, well, I've got to stop the Democrats, or I got to stop the Marxists, or I got to stop the communists. Choosing the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is how we got in this mess in the first place. So I'm just saying that, and I'm not disputing the fact that we're in a very unique time. I'm not disputing that if some of those Democrats get control of the Senate and the House again, we're really, really in for a bad time. I agree with all of that.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that I believe that more than our political activism and trying to strategically block what's coming, we really need to be on our face before God, not just saying it. We need to do it.
And I totally and absolutely agree with you. And I think for me, the political end of it is just one thing, one weapon in my arsenal, let's say, that can perhaps be used. And again, I do believe that we as a republic will eventually go down. It talks about it, Revelation. We're not in Revelation, you know, and on and on and on. God may have other plans. And if that's true, then that will happen regardless of what I do or regardless of what anybody else does. I feel right now, but that is something that I have to do. Do I want the rhinos out? Absolutely. Do I wish that everybody would go and vote them out? Yes, I do. But here's what I do know. If Hillary Clinton had gotten in right now, we would be under Obamacare. Our Second Amendment rights would probably be almost non-existent. The military would have zero money. Our borders would be open, and that's the life that we would lead. And I really believe that this is what is going to happen if the Democrats get in. Now, in 2018, if the Democrats get in and vote out the majority, you know, for the House, let's say, and they take back the majority, I think we're also going to see President Trump being impeached. Now, whether I would
be surprised at that either. Of course, they get Mike Pence.
That's right. You know, assuming that they don't also go after Mike Pence, you know, or whatever. I mean, I've always said, you know, you have to protect Mike Pence even more than the president with your prayers, because if Trump is gone and Mike Pence isn't there, then you've got Paul Ryan. You know, you're looking at having somebody who is just as bad, because he is a total rhino, a total globalist, somebody who believes just like the Democrats do. We're in a nasty, nasty situation that I agree with you, Bill. We have helped cause us to get here. And it's going to take, I don't know how long, if ever, for us to get out of that situation. We have some comments here I want to kind of read.
Yeah, there's one I want in particular you to read is Garrett's comment.
Yes, I'm going to read that, and I want to read Robin's. Robin says, I don't care if anyone agrees with me, abortion funding is the deal breaker. I don't believe you can stand as a Christian and support anyone who would fund killing the unborn. I'm on God's side, not any political side. God's opinion is number one with me. I will vote, and so be it if someone tells me I'm voting for liberals, if I choose someone who's not for abortion and not Republican. Marlene said, something else. Garrett said, major spiritual battle. Dawn agreed with you on an issue you were talking about. Garrett said, if we blow this reprieve, it could get 7 times worse. That's probably what you wanted me to talk about. Go ahead and comment on that.
Well, Right after Trump came into office, I wrote an article, and basically it was this, that if we have been given a reprieve,
Yes.
I likened it unto an unclean spirit that goes out of a man. Messiah talks about this. In fact, he says this right after freeing a man from an unclean spirit. And he says, when an unclean spirit goes out of a house, and he's likening the man to the house, or the house to the man. When it goes out of a house, it goes through dry places, seeking rest. It finds none. It eventually returns to the house. And if it finds it swept out, clean, and in order, which on the surface sounds good, then he goes and gets seven other spirits more wicked than himself, and they all move in. So the point is this. And I was kind of, playing on the White House theme. Hillary Clinton didn't get elected. Hallelujah.
Yes.
Praise God she didn't get elected.
Right.
And so, and in my view, another spirit left when the Obama administration left.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem saying that. But if that White House is not full of the Spirit of God,
Yep.
this is the thing. If it's not full of the Spirit of God, because the White House is emblematic of the nation in that it is the people's house. So it is, I believe, we look at that, and if the White House, if the people's house, which is to say the people, the nation,
Right.
if we're not full of the Spirit of God, then what's going to happen is any spirit that was, dismissed
Yep.
is going to come back.
Right.
And this time it has designs on never getting kicked out ever again. That's why he gets 7 of his friends that are more wicked than him, because he came out easily. Next time it's not going to be so easy. And so that's exactly what I see. I'll go so far as to say this. You may disagree with this. I hope I'm wrong. I truly, truly hope, pray I'm wrong. But I see another civil war in this nation in our lifetime.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that. Especially if you're going to talk about taking away our Second Amendment rights. And again, we have so many Republicans right now who are hiding in Republican clothing, if you will. They're truly on the other side. They're just calling themselves Republicans. And, I can see where, when you look at this omnibus bill, it was Congress who went in there and decided this. We had enough people on the Republican side. We had the majority. If we had really wanted to, we would have said no. The Congress would have said no, but they didn't. They went along with it. It proves who they are. And that's why I call it a sick and weak, group that we have over there. They're not doing what the people want. They're doing what the progressives, the communists want, and heading us right down the road where we get, we lose our republic. That's where we're going.
Well, and if we conclude and agree that our leaders are not listening to us,
right,
then there is only one avenue we have left to us, and that is to appeal to heaven.
Yeah,
that is to appeal to the Creator of all things, right. and cry out. And I don't mean just some passive little mamby-pamby prayer.
Yes, I know.
I mean, we really need to get serious about this, or all these things that we've just described are in our future.
Yes.
Because there are things that I believe are determined to occur.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that God wouldn't be speaking to his people, giving us a chance, if you want to call what happened last year or the year before, a reprieve. He wouldn't be giving us an opportunity if it was just absolutely out of the question and impossible for there to be a change for the better.
Right.
In other words, there always has to be hope. I think that's what the whole concept of repentance is about, is hope. Now, granted, again, there are some things that are going to happen. The kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ. That's going to happen. But sometimes, maybe, and I'm going to underscore that word, maybe we hasten these things.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Maybe we bring them on ourselves in large part, or the timing of them in large part, because we do not take advantage of the windows of opportunity that the Creator provides for us. So again, if our leaders are not listening, then that's pretty obvious. I remember a few years back, my wife and I and kids, we were in Washington. We got some tickets to go to the Senate and kind of observe the proceedings. Ted Cruz was given an address that day. And when they all started walking in the room, Republicans, Democrats alike, these bitter antagonists, these political rivals, phooey on that. When they started walking into the room, they were glad handing, they were slapping one another on the back, they were jawing, they were laughing, they were cutting up. They're buddies, they're pals.
They are.
With a few exceptions, they're all in the same club. They're not listening. And that should be painfully obvious to us, which it should make it painfully obvious to us that the only avenue we have is to appeal to God. And and I'm speaking in general terms here, just can't bring ourselves to do it until the crisis is on us. Anyway, I'm through preaching.
No, but and you're making very good points. And I think the reprieve that, you're talking about may have been for giving people an opportunity to open their eyes and see that this isn't Democrats versus Republicans. It really isn't,
It's not.
and it's not about politics. It is a total spiritual battle. And it's not it's for the Republic, but it's for Bill, I'm going to say it. It's for our very lives. I really do feel that way.
I do too. I feel very strongly about that. Something that comes to mind here, just kind of out of the blue, and I've heard, different views on whether this was legitimate, whether it actually happened, or whether somebody made it up. But it's concerning George Washington's vision that he supposedly had at Valley Forge. I'm assuming you've probably heard about it. How this angel supposedly visited him, called him son of the Republic, and he basically saw the revolution and the outcome of the revolution. He saw the Civil War and the outcome of the Civil War, and then he saw the final and greatest struggle that the Republic would encounter, and that how it was basically a thick, dark cloud that overshadowed the entire land, and it looked like the people were just about to expire. And then all of a sudden there were these little beams of light that come breaking up through this thick, dark cloud to dispel it. Now, what I'm about to say, I say with some trepidation. I'm not going to say that I believe 110% that this vision was legitimate. Well, let me rephrase that. I'm not going to say with complete certainty that George Washington received that vision, but we do know that it goes back to at least 1840s, so preceding the Civil War. So whoever wrote this, whoever had the vision, it seems to me that in some ways it's coming to pass. So if that is to be considered legitimate, then what is the vision saying? That there's going to be such an end time spiritual battle that the only thing that's going to save the Republic is people falling to their knees and appealing to God.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Plain
and simple. And, when you talked a minute ago about the Civil War, Marlene said there's already a silent Civil War.
Oh, yeah.
And absolutely, it's been going on for about, 8 years at least?
No, I would say this goes back at least until the 2000 election.
Yeah.
You think back, and I wasn't
true.
a George Bush guy either, but you
Right.
think back to what happened in 2000. The nation was divided. It was obvious it was divided half and half. In fact, I think when Bush took office, the Senate was 50-50.
Yeah.
And the vice president, Cheney was as president of the Senate, was the tiebreaker. So we were already in the throes of a very uncivil civil war then, and it's just kind of been exacerbated, and it's just a bit more aggravated today.
Now, Garrett, a while ago asked, has anybody heard about Obama to be the UN leader? There's rumors about that. And I know before he even left office, my prediction was that he would, as soon as possible, go to the UN and be the leader of the UN. I see that with a real possibility of that happening. He came out the other day and talked about the March for Our Lives and said, I want many Obamas, and M-I-N-I, I guess. Many me's is what I say, but he wanted many of Obamas just like him to go out and spread the word. And
so he wanted many Dr. Evils?
Exactly. That's what it sounded like. So, I would think that he's so egotistical that he would love that. And I think that if he were in the UN, he could make probably the most damage sitting there as leader of the UN than he's ever made, because he will be more worldwide than he's ever been.
So what you're saying is all those people who said he was the Antichrist might be right.
It's a possibility, because
did I say that out loud? I'm sorry.
You said it out loud, but and that's what, let's be real. That's what a lot of people think. And it has to be, that according to what I've read about the Antichrist, it will be somebody that at least a majority of people, not the believers, but the majority of people will absolutely love. And I'll tell you, I think the majority of the people absolutely love Obama. Those on the left absolutely love him.
Well, I'm not going to go that far with it. I was kind of kidding, saying that, tongue in cheek, but
I wasn't.
I kind of picked up on that.
Yeah.
I will say that he is an Antichrist.
Yes.
Because he represents that mindset that offers something that not only opposes the teachings of the Messiah, but wants to offer a path to humanity that is defined as being instead of Messiah, instead of Christ. So I think I definitely see the spirit there. But now, anyway, we got off on discussing who the Antichrist is. But
I'm going to tell you that Dawn said anyone against Christ is anti-Christ.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I have no idea whether he is or isn't, and it doesn't really matter. I know what I believe about Obama, and I feel that he is part of the deep state, a detriment to this president, and a detriment to the republic, because he won't allow the president to do his job, and be president. Who, regardless of who the president is, that the former president should go away and let the new president be the president.
I agree with that. He had that luxury when Bush left. But one thing I will say about Bush, he was a gentleman, and he kept his mouth shut for the most part. Obama's done everything but that. Hillary has done everything but that, and she wasn't even elected. But let me make sure I get this in before we leave. We're starting to run short on time, but
we have a few more minutes. Yep.
Yeah, we need to keep something in mind here, and I believe in those things that the Creator has entrusted to us, whether it be a wife, children, business, a nation. I believe that we should be diligent to be good stewards, to be safeguards, to protect that He's given to us. It's kind of like being given a garden, and He puts you in the garden and says, okay, I want you to tend it. I want you to keep it. I want you to till it. I want you to do the work. And I also want you to guard it, because there are intruders out there that will come in and they will get in the middle of it. That's what the serpent did. He got in the midst of the garden. The wheat are sown in the midst, the tares are sown in the midst of the wheat. You were talking about the nation being destroyed from the inside. That's exactly what the adversary does. And so we have an obligation as believers to safeguard, to protect, to fight for, if necessary, those things that the Creator has entrusted to us. And so, again, I believe that relates or connects to the idea of wanting to stand up for the country, the nation that He's given us. All right. That being said, ultimately, we cannot do that unless we first make the kingdom of heaven our priority. We have to tend for the kingdom of heaven, seek the kingdom of heaven and His righteousness, and then all these things are added unto you. And so what has happened, I think, is that a lot of Christians, well-intentioned people, nevertheless have put the kingdom of heaven behind their other things, their families. Families are important. Wives are important. Children are important. Our nation is important. But if we put the kingdom of heaven on the back burner, that's why all these other things that are worthy of our attention and our protection are crumbling. So
Mhm.
we have to contend for the kingdom of heaven first, and then all these things be added unto us. So at the end of the day, my main fight as a person is not for America, but for the kingdom of heaven. Because you see, if I don't fight for the kingdom of heaven, there won't be an America to fight for.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
And I think in some ways we're saying the same things in that, for me, like I said, for me, this is no longer about Democrat versus Republican. It's not about politics. We're way beyond that. This is a spiritual battle. And by that, I mean, it has to be God focused. This is end times. This is revelations. This is whatever you want to call it, is happening right before our very eyes. And the only thing that is going to keep me from doing, what I said earlier about voting, keeping Republicans in, because I feel that it's important to do that in order for us to survive, would be for God to say to me, don't do that. And if he does whatever he directs, that's what I'm going to do. But for me at this moment, I feel that's what he's calling me to do and others to do, to save to save ourselves and our, what we have. And it does have to be focused on God, though, or it won't work.
Well, each and every person has to have that conversation with God.
Exactly.
I'm not one of those that says you should follow your heart, because the heart's full of wickedness. I mean,
Right.
your heart will lead you astray.
Right.
But we do have to have that conversation with God. What do you want me to do? What is my responsibility? What are you speaking to me? And so I'm not going to say that what he's spoken to me about is going to apply to everybody,
Right.
and there are some fundamental things, yes, but some of these issues that we're facing, we're going to have to walk out our own salvation with fear and trembling, knowing that each and every one of us are going to have to give an account for what we did, what we didn't do, what we said, what we didn't say. Right. So the fear of God is a necessary thing right now. We started out talking about how some of these young people in this march really don't fear or respect anything. And when I say fear, that's what I mean. Right. Be in awe of it, to respect it. And a lot of the reason for that is because well-intentioned people here, even people who would refer to themselves as Christians, have lost that fear of God. Mm-hmm. And so a healthy dose of the fear of God is necessary right now. Because if God is the only one standing in the way, if he's put people in position like a Trump, like, this guy or this guy, okay, great. But they're not worthy of our confidence. They're not worthy of our fear, if you will. He's the only one really standing in the way. Yeah. So I know we're kind of going on and on about this, but that's where we're at. It's that critical now.
It is that critical. And I think, one of the points that you talked about a while ago, we really do need to pray every single day, but even more so than we do now, probably in our individual lives. We need to pray for this president, vice president, yes, administration, yes, people in America. I mean, on and on and on. There's so much that it's almost like if we could, most of our day, every day should probably be devoted to prayer. That's how far along we are, and how much trouble sometimes that we're in our country and what we see.
Well, maybe that's why Paul said that we are to pray without ceasing.
Yeah.
To be in an attitude and a mindset of prayer. I'm going to be driving down the road here in just a few minutes, but as I drive down the road, honestly, that's where I'm cut off from everybody and everything, and that's where me and my Father in heaven have our more enlightening conversations, I guess you'd say. And that's where I spend, a lot of my prayer time is when I'm doing things like this. So there is, what you say is not far-fetched. We should be in a mindset of prayer, prayer without ceasing, and praying his will be done more than anything else.
Exactly. And that's the way it should always be. And that's the way that, regardless of what we do, and in the end, God is going to have his way and his will. And we are, as you said, we are called to do our part, and our part may not be what everybody else's part will be. And that's okay. It's okay to be, doing what God's directing you to do. And it may work for some people and it may not work for others. And it's not supposed to. So, I think that's the way we need to live our lives.
Right. Because if I'd had my way, there'd be another man sitting in the Oval Office today.
But you would have the perfect person, right?
Exactly. Right.
We all would have,
but God has his purposes,
Yeah, exactly.
Blessed be the name of the Lord.
Right. Absolutely. So we want to thank everybody for coming today. It was a quick hour, and Bill, we, glad that you could take time off, pull off to the side of the road, as they say. And
I've got 8% battery left. So that was good timing.
Good timing. All right. Until next week, everybody, thank you so much for your questions and comments. Please share the show with everyone, and God bless you. We'll take care. We'll see you again next week.
All right. Bye-bye.